Hello, I'm Captain Scott Larson, Chairman of the Negotiating Committee. For the next hour, Captain Bill Sower and Captain Tom Manning of the Negotiating Committee and First Officer Ken Bender of the R&I Committee will be joining us for answering your questions on this webcast. We look forward to your answers and questions on the tentative agreement. At the bottom of the screen, you'll find a question box where you can submit questions live to us here in Memphis. The questions will be verified for content and queued by subject. Be aware that we won't be able to get to all the questions due to the high volume of viewers. In being a live broadcast, you'll see us move around from time to time as we rotate in various subject matter experts. So let's get started. Yesterday, we conducted a 3-hour phone-in session with our line pilots. Two of the top questions that we received concerned 6-week bid periods and Passover pay as it relates to the new Section 24. Bill, can you explain why the 6-week bid periods are in the contract?
Sure, Scott. This is actually a reinsertion. It was in the 99 contract, was removed in 2006 because it wasn't used. And part of what we're doing going forward is looking at science-based work rules. So the reason for the reinsertion was fatigue mitigation. In a 5-week bid month, frequently the junior lines have to work back-to-back weeks of nights. From the discussions we've had with different sleep scientists, we know this isn't optimum, and as we go forward with data collection, it may rise to the point that the company no longer wants to do, or the association no longer wants back-to-back weeks or 5-week bid periods. So the way to get around that is a 6-week bid period, where you will have week on, week off flying on the night side. So what we talked about with the company was the ability to go to 10 4-week bid periods and 2 6-week bid periods. And those 6-week bid periods would most likely be during the summer. And that's the only reason they're there, is for the contingency that 5-week bid periods would become problematic at some point due to the fatigue science.
So we'd still have 12 bid periods per year?
Absolutely. That was all that was negotiated.
Okay. And Tom, how about Passover in the new 24?
Okay, yeah, we've had quite a few questions about that. The way it's going to work is Passover pay and the Passover mechanism is going to stay the same as it is today when the TAs pass until the new Section 24 goes in place. So if you're eligible for Passover today, or a trigger comes up and makes you eligible for Passover, you'll still get your Passover pay. If you're on Passover pay when we trigger over to the new 24, you will continue to keep that Passover pay unless one of the triggers that are currently in the book activate or you bid to a new airplane. So Passover stays until the new 24 comes, and then once the new 24 comes, you still get it unless you do something, take it away.
Okay.
The other thing I would say, Scott, is the new 24 is in phase 4 of implementation, so they're not even looking at doing something there until 2017. And we're probably not going to do the first system bid after the one we have right now, which is a 2-year bid. Probably will not be under 24. It'll probably be a shadow bid, my guess, because it's a new complex system. They want to make sure it works together or works right.
So we'll have plenty of lead time to know that the new 24 is coming in place, and that the new procedures will be in there.
Yep, for
and
sure.
Everybody that's on Passover is riding Passover like they are now.
Yes, yep.
Okay. Great. Let's start with some of the live questions coming in. The first question we've got is, what type of R days will be built on secondary lines?
Well, as you know, the TA has the capability of putting 20% of our days into the secondary lines, and they'll go in as blocks. Initially, it'll be just like today because the software won't be developed, so it's still going to be all the our days we built into our lines. Once we go over to that system, all the R24s will be built into hard lines, and then there'll be a mix of RA, RB, B+, and A+ in the secondaries. The 20% of the days is what falls out, but they'll be built in blocks, and they'll be treated like a trip. So you'll be able to pick them up in the view add window, just like a trip.
Okay, and then they stay as those blocks in the view add in the secondary process.
Yes.
And so they're available for pilots to use in that. What are some of the benefits of that? Along with right now, the current language has that you've got to build trips on a line until their trips are all gone in the secondaries, right?
Yeah, one of the benefits is we got rid of conversion lines, right? Because as you know, right now the secondary guy, the junior secondary guy, usually winds up with reserve days anyway. So now, if you front load the reserves and you give the capability of guys in the secondary world to bid on reserve blocks, now at least you get to bid on what you know what you're going to bid on. You know what you're going to get. There'll be no more conversion lines. So that's a benefit.
Okay. Bill, what do you think has been improved as far as reserves go in the new contract language?
Well, Scott, there's quite a list, and you can find that list at fdx.alpa.org. But I'll go to my cheat sheet here, and we'll go over a few of the highlights. First off, your duty's limited to 16 hours from the beginning of your notification window, unless, and there's 3 qualifiers, the flight is augmented, the duty period consists solely of a deadhead, or you're notified and you don't set any of your notification window, and you have to be notified at least 8 hours prior, so a legal rest period prior to the beginning of your notification window. So no more when you go look at 10 o'clock in the morning on B Reserve and you see a notification, you acknowledge it, and then your clock doesn't start till your trip shows at 3 in the afternoon. Nope, starts at noon now, and then ends at the end of the duty period plus 4.5.
Okay.
So for another one for the pilots sitting reserve in Memphis, RB plus, true 1.5 hour call out. There's no longer the, hey, here's a short call number and be here in an hour. A plus, it's that way unless there's a system, an operational emergency. And on A, hey, we are the world on time, so the time critical stuff is going to happen. R24. The hotel standby, we know this has been a problem from the get-go, so pilots originally scheduled hotel standby may not be revised to include additional hotel standbys. So if you got 4 days, you're getting 4 days, then you'll go back to R24. Does not prohibit them from giving you a day off on R24 and then assigning you another block of them. And if you get launched and extends beyond the end of your hotel standbys, then you're done for at least 1 day of your R24. Disruption was changed. Before, you only got disruption if you were changed to the A period. Now, if they change any of your reserve periods, then you will get 1.5 hours of disruption pay. TAFB leveling order was 50 hours. If the trip was in excess of 50 hours, they could go out of leveling order on this. Now it's 60 hours. So any trip less than 60 hours, time away from base, it's going in leveling order. After 60 hours, they have to look and see what's the best fit. If it was a 4-day trip, then they're going to look in the 4-day reserves in leveling, and the guy leveled with the least hours is going to get it. If there's no one in that block, then they'll look at people who have 5 days of reserve to cover that trip. If there's no one in that block, they'll look at people with 3 days and they'll soft R-day move it to cover the 4-day trip, but that pilot will get a 3 credit hour disruption for the soft R-day move. And that's a few of the benefits we got in reserve.
What about other disruptions for reserves? I think they're now going to be eligible for, in addition to the swapping of your periods and the soft R-day move, the intermediate stop pay and critical pay events like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We tried to get disruptions for reserve pilots for everything, but the company's logic that they said was negotiated by us on the original disruptions was you got paid a disruption because you had a seniority expectation on what you bid. And if you're bidding reserve, you have no seniority expectation. That being said, some of the new disruptions we added were for onerous duty periods. And I don't care if you're on reserve or you're a line holder. If you have an onerous duty period, you earned the extra money.
All right. Tom, given the proposed 80-20 R-day that we talked about a minute ago, split between reserves and the secondary lines going into bid pack, what percentage of overall reserve will end up in the secondaries? Is there any way to know that yet?
No, there really isn't, Scott. You know, that's a tough one to crack because it's all contingent on how many conflicts you have in the hardline reserve world. But we had talked about at the table was as as this thing starts to fluctuate and flow, there should be some kind of correction if you find that you're getting a lot more reserve days in the secondaries, then the 20% may be less. But it's really hard to tell because you don't know who's going to conflict what.
Based on the conflicts, yeah.
Right.
All right, one of the questions just came in is talking about reserve sim support, and that's been a topic of discussion in the last couple of days since the language came out. First of all, this question came in and says, is this a non-jeopardy ride for the reserve support pilot?
Well, no, it's not. I mean, every time you go in the sim and you operate as a crew in the sim, you're expected to perform to the expectations that, the standard that's set in the sim. So it's a jeopardy event. But remember, you have to volunteer to do it on across the board. If they're in open time for secondaries and you pick one up, you volunteer to do it. You know you're getting in there to do it. And also on reserve, you have to say yes. So they'll ask if you want to do one. You get to say no. If you don't want to do it, if you do, you get to go ahead and do it.
So anybody sitting in reserve, the only way to get this, you have to affirmatively say yes.
Yes.
I'm willing to go do simulator seat support.
Yeah, they'll assign it to you or ask if you want to do it, and you have to say yes. If you don't want to do it, say no.
Okay, and there's no jeopardy to that saying no?
No.
Okay. Can the company use those sim supports events to help block up the old infamous insufficient reserves for trip trades and things?
No.
Okay, yeah, they're not an event, right?
Yeah, I mean, because what happens is if they get offered to all the reserves and nobody takes them, they go back to the schoolhouse. Someone in the schoolhouse is going to fly them.
Yeah, and the
So
max open LOA is based on trips.
Yeah.
On trips. Okay. All right. The next question is dealing with the signing bonus, and it says in LTD, why are ALPA pilots that happen to be on LTD being prorated on the signing bonus? I'll take this one.
Please do.
First, the lump sum agreement was a negotiated document. It was not a unilateral document. For ALPA's part, decisions concerning the lump sum agreement were made by the MEC in consultation with the MEC-appointed bonus advisory group that was made up of MEC members. Pilots with periods of LTD during the amendable period will receive a prorated bonus like they did in 2006. The bonus employs a look-back approach during the amendable period, aiming to compensate our pilots for the delay during that period in reaching the new negotiated pay rates. It prorates periods during that look-back period when a pilot was not active, it was not in an active paid status, and it's consistent with the concept of retro pay. All right, next question involves sub. So regarding sub assignments, what happens when you're assigned a trip within 4 hours of the show window? The writer says when the way he reads it, you can't reject that trip. Is that true?
No, it's not true, Scott. There's some confusion because in the subsection in 25H, we rewrote the section to try and make it clear, and apparently it's not as clear as it should be. So the section they're talking about only deals with trips that are assigned to you outside your initial availability window. So you have your 4-hour initial availability window. They're assigning you, or they're offering you a trip outside that window. If they offer you a trip outside that window, you have from 24 hours before the show time of that trip to 4 hours to say no, you don't want it. If you don't say no, then the assumption is you want it and it's yours. If you're inside the 4-hour window, your availability window, it's just like it is today. You can reject sub and everything that goes along with it.
Okay. The next question is dealing with implementation and programming. And it says, in looking at the implementation table, why is it going to take so long to implement many of the new benefits, such as the new disruption and many of the new deadheading features? Bill, I know you worked a lot on the implementation timeline that we have. Your comments on that?
Yeah, Scott, a lot of these things are very complex and require quite a bit of programming. But all of the disruption things that there's money attached to are effective date of signing, and you may have to submit a pay log for them until we can get the automation done. But things in the deadhead system, A lot of those go into effect at data signing. Other things like the rolling deviation bank, that requires quite a bit of programming. So again, if you look at the implementation guide, you'll see that anything that attaches pay or extra money, that's available data signing.
And some of the other automation things, we're not talking waiting 2 or 3 years for these things.
No, most of it was to be done by the spring of next year.
Okay. All right. Next question that came in is dealing with the single layover disruption. As you know, there's a new disruption penalty payment in there for a single layover that's disrupted. Does that can you talk about that a little bit, and does that apply to an international trip?
Sure, I can talk about that. No, that was for domestic only. And it was that if you come in showing up expecting to go to Greensboro and they keep the same flight number but send you to Rochester, then normally you would get an hour and a half disruption. But we look at this, and on a single layover, you didn't really plan to go to Greensboro. So you get 3 hours, which is essentially time and a half or draft for forced to go somewhere that you did not bid.
All right. Let's see. The next question. Dealing with deadheading, and it states, what was the trade-off for first-class deadhead tickets? First off, there was no trade-off on first-class deadhead tickets. I think what they're probably referring to is the use of the fully flat and lay flat beds, the ones that go past 175 degrees horizontal where you can get some sleep in it. And as you guys know, we looked at this. This was something the company was seeking. It made fatigue sense for us to do this because it is about getting some rest on those deadheads. And the trade-off with that was the rolling deviation bank. We also reached down internationally for anything that's higher, over 2.5 hours of block is now in a higher class of service, where currently you have to be over 5 hours of block. The 2 looks at the accepted fares and things like that. So we thought that was pretty good. Any comments on that?
No, I mean, that was exactly it. You're going to be able to lie flat and get rest on the deadhead, and that's what we were concerned about.
All right, let's see. The next question is dealing with deviation improvements and quality of life things. The questioner says that deviation rules may seem minor in comparison to some of the big ticket items. However, certainly can be a quality of life aggravation month to month. What kind of improvements were made in quality of life, and what, it says, well, also what hasn't been addressed in the TA?
Okay, well, you've got the couple of looks at the established fares. So you get the baseline fare and when the pairing is built, and then when a pilot is assigned to it, you get the established fare. So that means they go get a quote right then to buy that ticket. So instead of today's accepted fare can be 60 days stale, these will be fresh fares and will closely match, if you deviate at the time, what the real fare is. Now, you need to understand that the way these all work is as you get closer to the date, it's capacity controls and the price of the tickets go up. So if your first officer, for instance, came off a reserve, his ticket may be twice yours, because that's what, if the flight's almost sold out, that's what it's going to get ticketed at.
And the assumption there is he's not deviating, and so he'll take that ticket.
Yeah, so it will not hurt him. Then you've got the ability to roll half of your deviation bank forward and back, your unused deviation bank, to cover off any deviations you didn't have bank for in the month prior or the month after. And that's a huge win for our pilots. If you have a $5,000 bank 1 month now in savings, it just goes away. In the future, you can take $2,500 of it, you can roll it forward to the next month if you have no deviation bank and use some of it, or you can roll it back to take care of a $100 shortage you had in the previous month. So we see that one as a big gain too.
What about, I know one of the things we looked at early on was the ability to deviate initially and then join the deadhead en route and get all your protections and your trip services and things in.
Yeah, good point. That is one big thing we got, that if you join any part of the deviation, so For me, I go out of Baltimore, Fort Myers, but out of Fort Myers, I might go to Atlanta, and I might join the regular deadhead over to Paris. Well, I can check in, do my final check-in in Atlanta, and then I've got all the protections, and I've got the ground transportation once I get there.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. The next question is dealing with post-TA bargaining and the process. The question is, what if this TA gets voted down? What are the next steps in the process? Well, we're in a status quo situation. We would contact the NMB and the mediator and seek to re-engage the company in mediation. There's no set timeline of when that mediation would resume. I would probably estimate that it would not be any time the rest of this year, as we've had 40 days with the mediator to date in mediation. And I think it would be up to him when he would set an NMB, when they would set new mediation dates, and when the company would want to re-engage in bargaining as well. Any other thoughts on that, Bill?
No, I think that's exactly right. It's an unknown out there, but you go back and the NMB has control of the process.
Okay. Ken Bender's joined us now. Ken is not only our R&I chairman here in Memphis, he's also the national R&I chairman for the Airline Pilots Association. Thanks for joining us, Ken.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
All right, we got some retirement insurance questions for you,
Excellent.
and we'll just jump right into it. The first one asks, do you see the sick buyback program as a temporary measure for this contract only because of the retirement wave? Is this a benefit that the company want to get rid of in the next contract?
I do not see it as a temporary measure. It is now a piece of our contract, or it is in this TA, and if it is ratified, it will be a piece that moves on with us into following contracts.
Okay. Yeah, there were no sunsetting or anything in there in the contract in 28 on these.
Correct.
Okay. One question that has come up as a point that pilots are very interested in is the normal retirement age. Can you tell us what the implication is of the age 62 IRS requirement if we still want to retire at 60?
Absolutely. Totally understand the caution, the red flags that go down in pilots' minds when they hear this normal retirement age issue. And frankly, we were there with them in the same attitude. First off, to say to everybody, don't panic. This is purely being driven by IRS regulations, definitions within those regulations of what the normal retirement age is or can be. And due to the Fair Treatment for Experienced Pilots Act, FTEPA, where the regulated age was changed from 60 to 65, we have seen a demographic shift in the industry where pilots have become or have been retiring later and later in life. This has created an issue where, to maintain the qualification of our pension plans, we may need to change the definition of normal retirement age in the plans. This is purely a paperwork drill for the IRS, and what we have secured is language in the contract that states clearly and unambiguously that you will get the full value of the benefit that you would have gotten at age 60 with a normal retirement age, or up to age 55 for an early retirement age. You will still get full benefit that you would get if the age had been 60. There will be no change in benefit.
All right, so I'm going to ask you to say that one more time, just so it's crystal clear to everybody. The difference between right now with our current contract language and our current plan language and post-TA, is there any change to when I can retire?
There is no change to when you can retire, and there is no change to the benefit that you will be getting.
Okay, good. Hope that's clear. All right, the next question deals with the retirement bonus programs. Can you elaborate on the retirement buyout process and some of the limiting factors that are in there in the language?
Okay, so in this TA, there are a couple different cash benefits that are provided for pilots as they retire. One of them is the sick leave buyback. The sick leave buyback provides that if you provide notice of when you're going to retire and retire either on December 31st or in the month you turn 65, any day within that month, you will be eligible for this benefit. And this benefit is the lesser of three parts. One part is a calculation on pay over the last 24 months. The other calculation is your DSA ending balance. And the last is just a maximum of $110,000. This benefit will be fairly accessible to pilots right out of the chute, with none of the pay increases that would come from this contract. A pilot with a full DSA bank retiring at the end of this year at age 65 would be able to get up to $98,000 right off the bat. And then going forward, as our pay rates go up through this TA, it would march up from there as the maximum amount they would be able to get till it reached $110,000 in 2019.
Okay, and there's a second side to the SLB, I think in the contracts, the SLB plus.
Right, and this one is not tied to sick leave. It's just tied to advance notice of retirement. This is extra cash that we were able to get for folks that are nearer to retirement. As long as they satisfy the same notice and retirement windows, they will get up to $40,000 based on age and years of service as a cash payment when they retire.
Okay, and how do these affect, or what effect do these two programs have on vacation buyback, end-of-career vacation buyback and things like that?
Okay, there are no negative effects for vacation buyback. Vacation buyback will operate exactly as it has to date. However, for folks that are within the 2 years of the date of signing, who stay until their 65th birthday, the company is wanting to maintain some manning here, and that's something where we can get a little bit of a sweetener here for those pilots going out. So there is going to be a lifting of the 40% buyback for the year prior to the year they retire. So there is a possibility for pilots to get in excess of the normal possible 200% vacation buyback at retirement.
Okay, so this sounds like it's a little confusing.
It is.
And I know that you've got some examples up on our website, fdx.org, and you can click on there and see a couple of examples of guys with full DSAs, no DSAs, and the like.
Correct. Not only that, but we will also shortly have up on the website, we hope to have it within the next couple days, a flow chart that will allow you to start at the top, and it talks about when you're going to retire, all that stuff, and it's going to exactly line out to you what you will qualify for and how it works. Additionally, we'll try to have some worksheets put on there so that you can kind of pencil in and figure out how the sick leave buyback works and be able to figure out, estimate what it would be for you.
Okay. Let's switch to insurance for a few minutes. The insurance world has changed enormously since insurance was last negotiated in 2006. We've got some new plans in the lineup and things like that. Can you, first though, one of the big things that I think you hear on TV and everything is the ACA excise tax. Can you tell us about the excise tax and, you know, worst case, what are the implications for us with the excise tax and our insurance plans?
Sure. In short, the excise tax is a tax that was embedded in the Affordable Care Act, and what it does, starting in 2018, if the cost of your health care is above a certain threshold, the amount that's above that threshold is taxed at 40%. How this will affect our plans, we are not anticipating the excise tax being triggered by our plans until 2019 at the earliest, likely not until 2020. When it does affect our plans, we have in place in the TA here mitigation steps that will essentially move value from one area of the health plan either to another area in the health plan that is not counted under the IRS regulations, or if we end up running out of room to do that, we will move value out of the health plan and move it to the pilots in another area of the contract, but maintaining the full value of this TA in the process.
All right, so let's talk about the new insurance plans. Sure. Currently, we have two plans for pilots domestically, the buy-up and the base. What does the new insurance lineup look like?
So the new insurance lineup will not start until 2017. 2016, everything will be same. You'll have your base and your buy-up just as you would today. In 2017, the base will be replaced by 2 consumer-directed health plans called the Purple and the Orange. These are different from our buy-up plan in that the buy-up plan, when you go to purchase that, you're buying value. And if you are healthy or have a good year, you don't use that value expires at the end of the year. The CDHPs provide you that value up front in the form of company contributions into your health savings account or health reimbursement arrangement for you to be able to manage during the year. Any funds that are left over at the end of the year are yours to keep. They roll over from year to year, and in addition, they can grow as you invest them or get company credits.
What happens with those when you retire?
When you retire, those accounts go with you. Any amounts you have in there will be yours. You will be able to use those for eligible healthcare expenses into retirement, and so will your spouse and dependent children up to their eligible age.
Sounds confusing.
It is.
So CDHP versus buy-up, how do I make this choice? What am I going to do? When do they become effective?
So the good news is they don't start until 2017, so we're going to have a lot of time for education, be able to teach the pilots on how to use, how to take advantage, and how to maximize their use of either plan, whichever is best for them. In the meantime, one place where pilots can go to learn a lot about consumer-directed health plans, HSAs, HRAs, is the website of the vendor that would be taking over the administration of the accounts. This is healthequity.com. I recommend going there. They have a ton of great videos and booklets and explanations there.
All right.
Ken, I'm going to be a TRICARE baby next year, and it is all about me, right?
Sure.
So would I be able to use the CDHP? I mean, typically those guys are in the base plan.
Yes, you would be eligible to use the CDHP. One thing, if you are eligible for TRICARE, you become ineligible for an HSA, a health savings account. So we created the CDHPs with a health reimbursement arrangement for folks such as yourself. This gets you the same amount of company contribution that you can use for your eligible medical expenses, and TRICARE will still be a secondary payer, so it'll still help you cover your medical expenses.
Awesome.
All right, let's switch back over to retirement. We got another retirement question came in. Dealing with 401k investments. Question is, am I correct in reading that I'll be able to move my 401k, PMPP, and PRSP to a private investment manager?
Good question, not quite. In this case, what we have provided is that a third-party financial advisor can come in and directly manage the monies in your PRSP. You won't be moving the money out of the PRSP. It will stay within the plan, but you will be able to give permission for that third-party financial advisor to come in and direct the investments of those monies in your plan.
Okay. Thanks, Ken. Bill, you know, one of the questions that we had a lot is a 6-year deal. Why a 6-year deal? And I know that we talked about it as a committee. We talked to the MEC about it. The company was seeking a longer-term contract. And frankly, as we looked at it as the deal came together, 6 years seemed to make sense to us. You had any comments on that?
No, I think absolutely. If the deal looked right and the money was there, it made sense to go for the 6th year. We got a lot of good gains in this contract, and protecting those for 6 years, as long as we could protect the money on it, seemed to make sense.
Okay. The next question, and Tom's joined back with us, deals with KCM. And it says KCM is to be paid for by the company, and I believe that the cost remains, if the cost remains below $250,000 a year. How much does it cost now? Well, as we know, the company turned on KCM early. We bargained it about 14 months ago, and then the company stated they wanted to turn it on early, as it was a benefit to them as well as to our pilots. When they turned it on the first year, when they finally got it on, the first year costs were right about $100,000. So we are well below what the cost of KCM is now, and should be for the remainder of this contract. I don't see any issue with that at all. The next question is dealing back in the scheduling world, over in the flight time and duty time stuff, Bill. It's concerning ULR override greater than 16 hours. Will that be in addition to the existing international override, or is it added together? Is it parsed out, or how's that going to work?
Okay, the way that works is that is in addition to all other benefits you get on that pairing, as long as you have a single segment scheduled for more than 16 hours. If you block out on that trip, you get the override, $24 an hour for the captain, $17 an hour for the FOs, or the captains, I should say, to be scheduled with 2 captains, 2 FOs. That's in addition to all other compensation. So, and it's on the total credit hours in that pairing.
Okay, so it is in addition to the new international override went up to $10 an hour. So a captain would be getting $34 an hour as the overall override for that, in addition to per diem and any other thing else.
Right, over is $286 the first year, so it'd be $320 an hour on those. But the company that we know of has no plans so far to do this, and it would probably take 6 months to a year to get approval, because first the company would approach the association. It's a cooperative evolution, and we would design the pairing. We'd put it through our sleep scientists. Then they would go to the FAA, ask for permission to fly this pairing while they collect data. And then once the data is collected, it would be studied by the sleep scientists. And then if everything looked good, then they would go to the FAA for final approval. That entire process is likely to take 6 months to a year.
And we currently don't have anything in our system that approaches over 16.
The longest scheduled leg I have seen is 15 hours and 25 minutes, and that's in the winter.
All right, back still in the work rules. The next question, Tom, I'll ask you to take this one, is explain the improvements in the 4A2B language.
Well, 4A2B, as everyone knows, was quite the time. So we sought to improve on the settlement agreement, which we got through the grievance of 4A2B. And we've got a clearly defined entry and exit. And in the entry, we defined a slower way to get in. So we've got more mitigations on the way in to try and ease the impact of getting in there and getting your BLGs lower. And then we've introduced some things inside of 4A2B that once you're in there, that will help reduce the have and have-nots among the bid packs and try and ease the pain. That was one of the things that was the worst part of 4A2B last time.
All right. Bill, still staying in the scheduling area, the next question is the secondary line replacement a backdoor to PBS?
No, it's not, Scott. As you might know, the 99 contract brought on the secondary line system with an automated software, which was a first-generation PBS software. It's not a backdoor, it's right out front. Scoring very high in the polling of the pilots was fixing the secondary line system. Right now, you have the worst of all possible worlds. You have a pilot who puts in preferences that are interpreted by a non-pilot, who then puts it into a first-generation software that spits out results with no reasons report, so you have no accountability on why did you get what you got. So it scored high for us to fix that. So to fix it, we're going to put the pilots in touch with the software. They're going to be there'll be a GUI, a graphic user interface, will be the first step, to have a GUI to put the pilots in touch with the software. Then there'll be a process that involves the SIG to find a replacement software so that the secondary line results, you get what you preferenced, and you get a reasons report to tell you why you got what you got.
And how about separating the windows?
Yeah, one thing we did do, and this has been a bone of contention since my days on the SIG, was, hey, right now, if the windows are the same between the CIA and the carry-on award window and the secondary process. So what we did is we separated the windows so the CIA would close and you would have an honest-to-God period of 24 more hours where you can go in and see what's in that secondary system and adjust your preferences. Because what happens now is your number one preference may be a trip that is gone, but the points in the current software still get counted against you, so you get penalized for something that was never there. Obviously, really needs to be fixed.
All right. The next question, still staying on secondary process, is that this SLR LOA is out in phase 4 of the implementation. It will take a while to develop this and do this. In the meantime, the secondary lines, we're looking at an improved interface in the meantime on the current system. But at the end of the day, with any new secondary line replacement that comes out of the LOA, who has final say on whether this thing's implemented or not?
The association has the final say on any new software. It has to be jointly agreed to implement it.
And if the association does not agree to it, it won't be implemented.
Then it won't be implemented. They'll continue to use the existing software that they have now. Everyone should understand this is a process that's going to take a while. Even to get the graphic user interface will probably take a few months. And then you have to have a requirements document for a new software. You have to find a vendor. There's acceptance testing. It's quite a process.
Okay. Tom, this next one looks like it's right up.
Scott, let's go back because on data signing, they are going to split the windows right away.
Right.
And that will improve secondaries. You know,
Yeah, good.
because
That's
you
true
will
out of the
get
gate,
you will
yeah.
get the true look when you're in the secondary world. So that'll help right away.
Yeah, that'll help right away. And then as we develop this new stuff, it'll come online as it does.
One
That's
other
a good
item
point.
there we forgot to mention was that we've actually moved the window, so you'll get your secondary on Monday now. You don't have to wait until Wednesday.
Well, that comes with the new software.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but that is the goal, and we will finally get there. Yes.
All right, let's switch to section 24, filling of vacancies. The question is that there's an application note in there, and the question as written says that I'm currently serving a 24-month sentence because I was unable to attend ITU training when the company needed me to. Am I eligible for parole in August of 2017? And does the application note in 24F release me from my seat block?
Yes. What the application note says is once they run a new system bid under the new 24, then because there are new lateral and down bid freezes that or restrictions, that everybody will get a zero. Everybody is free, no parole, no anything. It's all zero, and the counter starts over.
Okay, good. All right, that was pretty good. The next question is back to deadheading and the established fares. It says, if the second look of the established fare happens to be lower than the baseline fare, would that new lower fare be the fare for the deviation bank? The way that's going to work, as we bargained it, is you're going to get the two looks. You're going to get a baseline fare when the pairing's built, or a deadhead is added in as a revision. When they can actually have a name and somebody's assigned to that trip and they can ticket it, then they will create the established fare, because that is a valid fare that can be the ticket can be purchased for, and that'll be a closer in look, as Bill talked about earlier. In a normal bid period package, if you bid and you're awarded a line with deadheads on it and you deviate prior to the start of the bid month, you will get the higher of the baseline or established fare. But if your deviation notification occurs once the bid period starts, you'll get the established fare, which will be the fare that's more accurately reflects what can be purchased when the ticket is bought. I think that should cover that pretty well. The next is, can you give me an example of how the company's domestic multi-leg relief in a block over 8 would work? And how is that different than the current CBA language and examples? So it's the 8 and 24.
Oh, the
daytime.
old 8 and 24, my personal favorite. So our current CBA has written into it the supplemental rest provisions, which requires that if you're going to exceed 8 and 24, 8 hours a block in 24 hours, that after the first segment you be given double the block time off in rest before you can start the segment which will exceed 8 and 24. So for instance, I used to fly the old Oakland, Philly, Oakland, and when I got to Philly, I'd have 5.5 hours a block. I needed at least an 11-hour rest before I went back to Oakland. But by the time I got back to Oakland, I'd actually flown 11.5 hours a block in 24 hours. So what we did is we said, look, on the day side, we are now under domestic rules. So we provided the company with some relief on the day side only, and that means none of your duty can touch the critical period, 0100 to 0459. That also provides us relief. Now let me give you an example. The San Juan layovers are 24 hours. So you're going to either go out in the critical 24-hour layover, come back in the day, or go out in the day, 24-hour layover, and come back at night. So what it would give the ability to do is a company could build San Juan as a 12-hour layover now. So you're going to go down to San Juan, you get a 12-hour layover, day side only. Then you're going to come back to Memphis, and they'll turn you to Philadelphia. Well, going to San Juan and getting a 12-hour layover and then coming back to Memphis, you've now blocked over 8 hours. We're allowing that you can now turn to Philly for another 2 hours of block, and there your rest has to be at least 13 hours, operationally reducible to 12. Under the current rules, it would have to be 17 hours. But what you get on that is at the night side, there is no relief in 8 and 24. So the night side San Juans will have to be 36-hour layovers. So you get 12 on the day when everyone else has been doing this for a long time on the day side. We thought this is very fatigue friendly because 24-hour layovers are the most fatiguing thing we do domestically. So that's basically how it works. You're going to get 12-hour layovers on the day side. You're going to get 36-hour layovers on the night side. And we hope to eliminate 24-hour layovers to the extent that we can, that there are cities to work with us.
And talking about that reminds me of something when you mentioned 24-hour layovers being the bane of fatigue. Internationally, what did we do to help mitigate multiple rolling 24s?
Yeah, it's interesting. Never got a single question on that because I think people don't, unless you live in the scheduling world, you maybe don't think through it. But if you looked at, say, the disputes for the last few months on international pairings, what you typically see is a 12, 13-day pairing that has, because the current requirement is you get 36 hours off in a rolling 168. So basically then at 132 hours, you have to start your rest. The new rule, if you're going more than 5 time zones, so internationally, is you're going to get 32 hours off in 120 hours. So what that means is that 13-day pairing that had one 48-hour layover in the middle of it, or one 36-hour layover in the middle of it, is now going to have 2 32-hour layovers. So effectively, after 88 hours time away from base, you will have to start your 32-hour layover, which gives you the ability to refresh your fatigue tank, to get your sleep refreshed. So it provides you with a reset sooner in the pairing and more resets in the long international pairings. And we ran them past the SMEs that we have, the subject matter experts on the PSIT teams, and they liked the results.
Okay, thanks.
Scott, I'd like to go back to the 8 and 24 because there's a couple of points that are important to know. One is you cannot exceed 8 and 24 in a single duty period.
Right.
That is still 735. And that's why when you read this language, it says if it's scheduled to exceed 735, this applies. The other thing is the way we bargained this was it's either scheduled or it's awarded or signed. So it's something they're going to build in the scheduling world. It's going to be on a bid pack. People will know what they're getting into on the day side when we're going to fly these pairings, or a reserve will get it. And then if it's a multiple day trip, none of that flying can touch critical. It can't be revised to touch critical. It's when we talked about it, it's kind of like a golden pairing. The thing has to stay the way it is. It has to stay in the daytime.
Okay, that's a good point, Tom. Thanks. Next question goes back to the LOA on the secondary line replacement, and we talked about this, I think, a minute ago, but we'll reiterate the point about the ultimate decision goes to the chief pilot or the VP and not our union, and that's not true. Before any new software can get introduced here under the LOA, the VP of Flight Ops and the MEC chairman have to agree to it. So the association has to agree to it before that would be implemented. And that's how that will work. So we talked about this one earlier. This question just came in, says how many 6-week bid months do you anticipate? Frankly, we don't anticipate any. It's not something the company was seeking. We put it in there for fatigue mitigation, like Bill talked about on the night side, for the week on, week off night flying. That could work, but we don't anticipate any of them. In the discussions we had with the company, we talked about 2 of them back to back, with the rest of the year being filled out with 10 4-week bid periods.
Yeah, and Scott, I'd like to talk some about the theories that are out there about what that's going to do to the bid packs. They had that from '99 to 2006, and they never used the 6 weeks at all.
That's a good
So
point.
if if the thought is they're going to reduce bid periods to reduce overrides or some other thing, they would have done it in '99.
Yeah.
As you said, we talked about it for us, and they really don't want it. They can't plan that far out anyway. So, just wanted to mention that.
Yep, good. Next question is about the rolling deviation bank. Can it be applied both prior to and the following month at the same time, or do you have to declare which way you're going? No. The way this will work is at the end of the month, you have 50% of what you saved in your deviation bank for the month. You can either apply it retroactively 1 month, so you can reach back, let's say it's January, you could reach back and fix an overage you had in December that you didn't have bank money to cover, and fix that, and then whatever's remaining rolls forward into February and is added to your February deviation bank. So you can both reach back 1 month and then roll forward with whatever's left. Obviously, if you don't reach back and have anything to fix, the entire 50% will roll forward into the next month. And that rolls forward to the next month. You didn't have any deviation expenses. 50% of that month would then roll forward, and it would keep going until you were out of deviation bank money, or you had more deadheads added to your schedules.
But the hotel cancellation bank, right?
And that's a good point. Something that hasn't been asked in this webcast is the hotel cancellation bank. $30 domestic, $60 international for canceling your hotel room with at least 24 hours notice. That goes into a bank. It'll be on your bank page on VIPS, and it's capped at $10,000, and that will cover any allowable reimbursable deviation expense that you otherwise don't have money to cover. So if you've got $5,000 sitting in that bank, you can cover $5,000 of deviation expense that you don't otherwise have money to cover.
Okay.
Good point. The next one is, do you think you left money on the table? I certainly don't. We bargained this contract in pay and benefits is over $1.67 billion over 6 years. And in the negotiating committee's opinion, we picked up every nickel that was on the table to be had and then some. The next.
I don't think we ever had purple.
No,
The next question is pretty good.
Uniform
So some of the blue ones kind of got to purple after a while, but can we get the purple shirts back? Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, appreciate that one coming in. I did see a blue shirt not too long ago, which is pretty funny. FDA and class of service. Would an FDA-based pilot with a deadhead within the European theater that is greater than 230 be eligible for a higher class of service? Yes, an international trip that is greater than 230 rates a higher class of service. And let's see, the follow-on, would an FDA-based pilot with a deadhead to and from Tel Aviv greater than 5 hours be considered intercontinental? Israel is on the continent of Asia. I think you could make the argument that yes, those are two different continents, and that would be an intercontinental definition. One of the other things, we got another question just popped in here. Let's bring Ken back in. We got a couple more of the retirement and insurance questions here as we close out this session.
You thought you got away.
Ken, this question is dealing with retirement, and it says, what is the validation or not being able to get an increase in the defined benefit plan, raising the cap on the DB?
So due to changes in the space around defined benefit plans, the financial accounting standards of which the company has to use to put the financial liabilities incurred by a defined benefit plan onto their books, this has become a very, very expensive and a very, very high liability reflected on their books. The cost of, say, $1 put onto a DB plan is going to be 2, 3, 4 times that in liability. So it's become a very challenging thing for companies to be able to do on Wall Street and in the public's eye.
And we bargained retirement and specifically attempting to raise the cap for years.
Very,
This
very
cycle.
stridently did we bargain that.
And we made a lot of attempts to do that, and the companies, up until the last session, their stance in retirement was putting new hires on a completely different DC plan and sunsetting our A plan for our pilots on the property through a soft freeze. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks. Next question is dealing with the end of career bonus. Is the 40K bonus the SLB plus side of it based on age of date of signing or age of retirement? When do you enter that chart?
You enter that chart on data signing. So on data signing, if TA ratifies, just take a marker, go in there, take your age and your years of service on that date, circle that, and that's what will be coming your way when you do retire, as long as you give the appropriate notice and retire on the dates that are available.
And after age 60 or older, right?
Correct.
Okay. Let's see, we're bouncing here down to insurance. What is the cost of the buy-up plan starting in 2017?
Okay, so cost of the buy-up plan in 2017, when we move on to the new cost share, this is an estimate. These things can change, but these are estimates done by professional actuaries, so we think they're going to be very close to what we will see. And in 2017, we estimate for an employee on the buy-up, it'll be $119 per month, which is $45 more than it would be if we stayed under the current system in this current CBA. And for the families, I'm just going to do the highest and the lowest tiers, $407, which is $121 more than it would be under the current CBA.
And as our costs, I know we've talked a lot about the throttle and things like that. And currently, under the current contract, the company can raise our premiums without any justification for it. They have an automatic escalator to it. And under the TA, when these new plans do come into effect, that they're going to actually have to show and justify the increase, if any, of our premium. Is that right?
That is correct. We negotiated quite a bit of transparency in the process. We will be able to meet with the company, see what they are using, what data they are using to project the rates for the next year. We will have an opportunity to have our independent health actuary look at those numbers, question those numbers if need be, and once the year has been completed and actual expenses have been tallied up, we will be able to look back and make sure that the cost shares that were agreed to are being abided by.
Ken, can we put that the $121 number, can we put that in context? Even if you were a new hire narrow body FO, what part of your pay raise is that?
Sure. For a narrow body new hire first officer, the pay raise that they would get annually is $8,380. That's the annual that they would get to be able to address those higher costs.
Okay, thanks.
All right, let's see, Ken, we got another retirement question there. Can you explain the pop-up joint and survivor pension benefit?
Sure. Before I do that, it's important to discuss the current joint and survivor so that everyone understands what that is. Quickly, your retirement benefit is meant to be used over your lifetime. And if you have a spouse that you would like to have covered under the payment after you die, that's going to lower your payment while you're alive. It's the old spreading the same amount of butter over more toast. Mm-hmm. Now, if under the current system, if you have that joint and survivor and your spouse dies before you, that lowered amount that you took while you were alive to spread that butter over more toast is now permanent. You have permanently taken that reduced benefit. Under the pop-up joint and survivor, if you will take a reduction in benefit, again, to spread that benefit over both people's lives, if the spouse predeceases you, however, you will now pop back up to the full amount that you would have gotten had you not elected a joint and survivor in the first place.
Okay, good. It sounds like a pretty good additional benefit for us.
Indeed.
Okay, good. Well, I'd like to thank Tom, Bill, and Ken for joining me here today as we did this webcast. I hope you found this informative out there. We appreciate you taking the time and effort to educate yourself on this tentative agreement. There were great questions that came in today, and if you need more information, please go to our website, fdx.alpa.org. There's plenty of information on there. We have another webcast coming up later, and the road shows start in Memphis on Wednesday of next week. Remember, stay informed and stay engaged.